Good morning, everyone. Lots going on as usual. Today's Sunday, November 16th, 2025. I am way behind on my Christmas preparedness. Usually I'm way better on Christmas preparedness, but I've been busy with some projects and I'm feeling behind. So I've got lots of things to catch up on and I'm busy this morning. I'm doing this early. I almost didn't do a show this morning, but we are doing a kitchen table talk today, but I don't know if I'm going to be able to get the email out about the kitchen table talk. So just show up to the kitchen table talk. I'll be there around 1. I should be there at 1, but I might be late. So forgiveness, and I'll be there as close to 1 as I can be. And so what's going on in Mexico? There's crazy things going on in Mexico. The Mexican youth are rising. Reminds me of the color revolutions that are paid for by Soros. Are they trying to get rid of Sheinbaum because they don't like that she's working with Trump? Or is something else going on here? Are the youth of Mexico really wanting the government of Mexico to replace the cartels as the leaders? I genuinely don't know. Seems weird. Seems like, oh yeah, there's this big thing going on. I automatically assumed that it was the youth rising up against a corrupt government, but then I realized I have no idea. I genuinely don't know. So something's happening in Mexico. Phones will only use green energy to charge if you're lucky enough to have an Apple. I use Android, and I have used Android and since they stopped being able to jailbreak the iPhone 3GS. So that was the last iPhone I had. Honestly, oh no, I think I had an iPhone 4, and then I couldn't jailbreak it anymore, and then I didn't get an iPhone after that. I went to Android. Townhouse zoning repeal. The mayor of Calgary is going to remove the upzoning. So there's all sorts of things to get to. Let's get to it first. Elevate podcast is highlighting the budget misdirection, the budget crap that Carney is trying to pass off and seemingly going to get away with help from the NDP. So the Elevate podcast says, when $94 billion in operating costs is buried in the wrong budget category, Canadians should be asking who's cooking the books. The report released by the Parliamentary Budget Office shows the Liberal government has classified operating costs as investment, which Carney can use to claim he balanced the budget despite the actual deficit that will occur. So, there's a deficit, but with this math, it says with this math, it says balanced, right? Not a surplus, balanced. But it's bullshit. It's a lie, right? With this logic, Carney could give Algoma Steel and Brookfield billions of dollars in corporate welfare and still call it an investment, right? No debt here. It's just investing in Canada, and they'll have all sorts of crazy rhetoric to back up their crazy economic moves that make us weaker. But the reality is this, and this is Sandra Cobena, and she is an MP in, I don't know where she is, hold on, Newmarket. And I hate the audio behind the speech. I'd rather just clean speech, but I don't have the clean speech version, so apologies about the epic music in the background. But what she's saying, she wraps it up nicely at the end, but fundamentally, he's not going to meet any of the economic targets he made up for this budget to get this budget to where it is now, and that's wild too, because we don't have any fiscal anchors at all. We don't have any fiscal restraint, no fiscal anchors, no nothing. We're a balloon flying around a room, right? A deflating balloon flying around a room, and that's all Canada is right now. Here we go.
Parliamentary Budget Officer just shredded Mark Carney's new fiscal anchors in Budget 2025. The PBO says that there's only a 7.5% chance that this Liberal government hits its own deficit targets. And the debt anchor, well, it's expected to rise, not fall. This is insane. Mark Carney threw out the debt to GDP ratio. That's your gold standard. Every serious country uses it. He threw it out because it made his numbers look bad. Yes, it's actually projected to get worse over the next 5 years. So he goes and replaces it with a new one, the deficit to GDP ratio. But the PBO finds that there's only a 7.5% chance that that ratio actually declines over the next 5 years. There's stress testing that is done on the budget, much like you would in your own household budget, if there's an additional unexpected expense or if you find savings along the way. Well, stress testing shows that most scenarios are worse than the Liberals' own projection. So the bottom line is Mark Carney scraps the old fiscal anchors because it made his numbers look bad. He invents new ones, promises to follow them. But the PBO says he's actually unlikely to meet any of them. So Canadians are left with a serious question. Is Mark Carney a banker who cannot budget, or is he a banker that's manipulating the budget? Let me know what you think.
I think manipulating the budget, right? I think that's absolutely what's going on. And so how does Canada deal with that? Allows the government to continue with its malfeasance. Carry on, we say, as if we're judges in a courtroom and the prosecutor is badgering the witness. I'll let this continue so long as you're making a point soon, counselor. It's crazy. I don't know why we're allowing it, but here we sit. CBC is reporting this. This is a bit of a crazy story, and I just think it's important to highlight, so I'm highlighting it. These people didn't know about a $15,000 or $13,000 to $15,000 bill that the city was going to levy against them for sewer and road work done on their street 10 years after it was done. It's crazy. I'm hoping for a miracle. Breslau, Ontario neighbors on the hook for $14,000 per household for decade-old sewer work. Township says it should have had better communication with affected property owners. So people who live in Breslau, Ontario neighborhood are in shock after receiving a letter earlier this month saying they had to pay almost $14,000 per household for water and sewer work done on their street a decade ago. 25 properties along Shifley Place, Woolwich Street South, Dolman Street, Joseph Street received the letter dated October 27th from Woolwich Township. Each household is being asked to pay $13,950.19 to cover the cost of the project, which is $348,000, roughly $349,000. I was in complete shock. It's such a huge amount. Kayla Jagger, who has lived on Woolwich Street since 2018, told CBC News, "I didn't even live there then." What? I'm not responsible for this. I think it's completely unfair. I'm at a loss, really, because I don't know where to begin. I'm not a lawyer, and I can't really afford a lawyer, so I'm hoping for a miracle. Jagger says she and her neighbors did not receive any communication from the township about any potential charges until they received that letter. So there was, presumably, she bought the house. Usually when you buy a house, there's a search on the property done to make sure there's no liens on the property. Nobody says, hey, you owe $30,000 and this property has been put up as collateral for that $30,000. So this $15,000 from before that was incurred before this woman was owner of the house should not be her responsibility, I don't think, but it looks like it is. Right? Like, just because I don't think it should be doesn't mean it isn't, right? So that's wild and crazy. The letter, which the CBC News has seen, explains Township Council approved bylaw on October 7th to levy the costs of the work to property owners that benefit or will benefit from municipal servicing works. How can they just decide, hey, guys, we're going to hang it, like, we are the people who administer the tax-paying dollars here. So there's this street that needs road work and sewer work done. Should we get the people who live on the street to pay for it? Yes, all in favor, say yes. Okay, great, wonderful. And we get a raise, right? So that $345,000 or whatever, $49,000 comes right to us and we can all split it. Yay, carry the motion, right? Like, what? My gosh. The letter also outlines that residents can pay the bill by December 12th or have the option to add it to their tax bill, paying annual installments of $1,286 for the next 20 years. Oh, you've got a mortgage. You've got a mortgage for your tax bill that we decided to hang around your neck. What? How did these people just decide to hang this tax bill around these people's neck for road work that presumably they are paying taxes for anyway? What? She said she also worries for the neighbors who are on fixed income and struggle to pay the bill. Michael Lamb, a real estate lawyer with Cohen Hinley LLP in Kitchener and a professor at London University of Western Ontario, said residents should check to see if they have title insurance. Is this whole thing an ad for title insurance? I am not recommending title insurance. I mean, get title insurance if you want to, but this kind of stuff should not happen, and there should be legal repercussions for counselors who decide that we want you to pay double taxes for this road work that we've made on your road. Like, it's not like the people in the houses called up a road work company and had it all done and then sent the bill to the city and they said, no, I don't think so, and sent it back. This is road work that the city is responsible to get done. And they were like, oh yeah, we'll just have the citizens pay for that. Those people are on the hook for that. Township missed sight of property owner changes. Jared Poop, a director, P-U-P-P-E, not P-O-O-P. Jared Poop. Okay, Poop. A director of infrastructure services told CBC News the township should have done a better job of communicating the charges with residents. Yeah. Okay. Well, at a certain point, 10 years later, you can't show up with a bill and be like, okay, so this is from 2013. Hold on, there's a story here, but you're definitely paying this bill. No. Poop said that in 2014, 77% of residents in the neighborhood voted in favor of having water and sewer services extended to their homes. Yeah, we like water services. That would be wonderful. Yes, on water services. The township went into litigation with the construction company when the work was complete in 2016. The litigation did not get resolved until 2024, which is why the residents are now being built. The thinking at the time was that we felt we were fighting the good fight to reduce the cost, but that we missed sight of the fact that this was likely to be property ownership there were likely to be property ownership changes throughout the process, he said. It was a miss. There was no excuse for it. Listen, you guys voted for this in 2014. Here's the bill. Okay, you're welcome. Poop said he understands that almost $14,000 bill is a lot of money and that neighbors are frustrated. He said residents should contact the township finance department to go over how they would like to pay and go over their options, especially those who may struggle to pay the charge. Hey, how about I'm not paying? Deal with that. Screw you and your stupid tax too. There are hardship cases. A $15,000 bill dropped in your lap is not like, oh yeah, well, some people might not be able to pay that. Most people in Canada don't just have $15,000 sitting around. Okay. Most people in Canada don't just have that in their pocket. $1,000 car bill is like going to knock you off kind of kilter for Christmas. A $15,000, sorry, we screwed up 10 years ago and here's your charges for the water services we installed, is absolutely offside. Like, are you kidding me? This is not just like, oh, it was an oversight. This is egregious, and they should absolutely not be doing this to anybody. Holy cow. So our municipal governments hate us. I've done this before, just a reminder that recycling is a scam. These people put trackers in recyclers, and then the recycling company took it to an incinerator and they burned the plastic that was supposed to be going to a recycling thing. So it's a scam, and it's been a scam for a long time, but people believe the scams. So if you tried to get rid of like the recycling programs and things like that, people would get upset because they think that it's helping the environment or something like that, even though it's not, right? Like, and that's how delusional we all are. It's so crazy. You can't stop this program that doesn't work. It helps the environment, but it doesn't help the environment. That's why I want to stop it. But it helps the environment. Okay, great. Let's just keep wasting money. That sounds like a great idea. How much more money do you want to waste on programs that don't do anything? Morons. Dan says, breaking, Mark Carney's health minister quietly lost $20 million worth of medical supplies from our national emergency stockpile. She hoped Canadians wouldn't notice. Now the minister refuses to say what vanished and why. Canadians deserve answers. Not only do the municipalities want you to pay for work that happened 10 years ago when you didn't own the house, but when we lose $20 million of medical supplies somewhere, nobody wants to give us a detailed accounting of what we lost and like, where did it potentially go? What's the theory? What's the working theory on where this, like, warehouses of $20 million worth of pharmaceutical products don't just disappear, right? So like, when's the last time we saw them? Like, were they traveling on a truck? Do they have an air tag with them? Like, what do you mean we lost $20 million worth of pharmaceuticals? And what do you mean nobody got fired because of it? Like, are you kidding me? She hoped no one would notice. Well, right? When you stonewall people and refuse to answer questions, people tend not to notice, I guess. Here is Algoma Steel, and Algoma Steel is looking at layoffs because of the U.S. tariffs and Canada's stupidity around trade. Mark Carney looks like he doesn't actually want a trade deal, and that's not so good. And so that's not so good for Canada's economy, right? And so here is Ryan. He says Algoma Steel gets $500 million in Canadian tax dollars, and they're not only still laying off people, but the CEO doesn't really answer where the money is going. It's buying time? What does that mean? This guy makes over $1 million a year. Time would be like, we're not laying people off now, and we are going to lay people off in the future, but not now because of all that money that we're getting from the government, but we don't have any projects to give the people, so we're just paying them for them to sit at home and do nothing. Ish, but that's not even the answer he gives. He just says it's buying time. So anyway, here's this little back and forth. We'll watch a minute of it. It's 3.5 minutes.
Algoma Steel just reported a loss of $87 million in the third quarter.
The stakes are incredibly high. The Canadian market needs to mature and develop. We are getting ready, as they say in hockey, we're skating to where the puck is going to be. But we're not completely in control as to whether that's where the puck is going to be.
Algoma Steel used to sell more than half of their products to the United States. But tariffs have made doing that so expensive that the American market is essentially closed now. So here, the company is trying to come up with a new way of doing business. And to do that, a few months ago, they got help. Lots of it. You got $500 million from the federal and provincial governments. What's that money for?
Well, that buys us time. And there's nothing more valuable in this environment than time. And what we're going to do with that time is we are going to get ready to pivot to a domestic market. We're going to lower our cost. We're going to become much greener. We're going to become much flexible. And we're going to respond to what market opportunities there currently are.
The uncertainty.
What market? Like he couldn't speak to the market opportunities. He said we're going to lower costs. How are you going to lower costs? Everything costs more. The price of electricity is more if you're going to electrify everything. If you're not going to use oil and gas and whatever to run your steel smelters, I don't know, man. Like, you're going to be green steel, lowering your costs with really high electricity prices, and you're going to find domestic projects that are going to replace all of the work that the United States used to give Algoma Steel. Doesn't sound like a viable plan to me, but hey, give it a go, I guess. $500 million? Well, what's the run rate of a steel plant that's not producing any steel, right? Like, how much does the payroll cost a day, right? So, and they're going to innovate? I don't think so. Baron Trump's News says Mark Carney didn't give a speech. He basically admitted the plan. Canada and the EU are building a shared power bloc to enforce climate mandates, push the United Nations 2030 agenda, and police speech under the excuse of protecting science, and merge defense, security, and economic policy under one ideology. This isn't diplomacy, it's consolidation, a global framework where climate law and censorship outrank national sovereignty. Canada's message was simple: the era of independent nations is over unless people stop it. And I don't think that he's terribly inaccurate here. Mark Carney is more weaselly with his words. Here's what he said.
Joint research and innovation. You know, at its core, final word, Europe was born as a project of peace. And Canada, over the years, over the decades, has served alongside European allies in pursuit of that peace. It's that, in those circumstances, from Vimy to Juno, that the world came to know the value of our strength. But now we're working alongside the European Union to combat climate change, to achieve the Sustainable Development Goals, and to protect, amongst other things, academic and scientific freedoms. In these ways, the world knows the strength of our values. And this partnership, which is in defense and security and economics, really builds the strength, builds those strengths in both our jurisdictions, and lives up to our values.
So, cloaked words, you know, economy, all of these things are all tied together. And defense, right? Very, very concerning. We're going to have lots of public service in the military because that's how Canada rolls. This should have gone after the property taxes and the tax story here. Carter says Ron DeSantis has begun officially advocating for the nationwide abolition of property taxes. You buy a home, you buy land, and then you've been taxed many times. Is it your property or not? Do you support this? Yes, I sure do. Property tax is paid one time, and you don't get a yearly stipend of taxes from citizens. I don't think. I think that we can run our economy in a better way. I think that there are ways to do that. Anyway, here's Ron DeSantis talking about this as well.
To higher taxes, such as higher property taxes, to pay for these spending habits. And you know, these property taxes, it's like you buy a home, you buy land, you know, maybe you buy the home outright, but maybe you pay off a mortgage over 30 years. And then, okay, you've paid off the mortgage, you bought the land, you've been taxed many times. It's like, is it your property or not? Just for being on your property, you got to write a check to the government every year. So you're basically paying rent to the government to live on your own property. And our homestead exemption is not strong enough to help these folks because the property gets assessed so high. And that's the thing. If you buy a home for $300,000 and you know there's certain tax, well then what? 10 years later, they say it's worth $700,000, and so, and they say, you know, there's homestead stuff that helps protect you to a certain extent, but you're paying more, and a lot of people can't afford that. So I think that that's a big issue, and I know we're going to be really looking at ways to bring people relief from that, because I think it's been really something that's pinching a lot of homeowners, particularly seniors on fixed income. But the reality is people have seen, and this is not the state, we don't control this, we've not allowed any of that stuff to happen. We've been cutting taxes, but people have seen their property tax liability go up over these last years because the property is being assessed higher and higher. And the reality is you don't really know how much your home is worth until someone offers you money and is willing to pull the trigger on a sale. That's how a market works. You can say it's worth this much, but if no one's willing to come and offer you that much, then why should you pay taxes on that amount? And so there's a lot of things that need to be done with that. But as part of our DOGE initiative, our state task force will look into local government expenditures by utilizing publicly.
So there you go. Where are the politicians in Canada who are trying to do this? In the UK, Charlotte is talking about taxpayers being charged for left-wing think tanks. I think that's happening in Canada. I think that's happening a lot in Canada. I think that different levels of government taxes pay for different levels of think tanks, like the Ontario government pays for think tanks. The Conservatives pay for think tanks. The Liberals don't have any money in Ontario, but you get my meaning, right? And federally, the same thing. There are federal think tanks that are funded by government tax dollars, and these think tanks support parties, and none of them, I don't think, work for citizens. Anyway, Charlotte says, why are UK taxpayers being charged for left-wing think tanks? Plus, one think tank's symbiotic relationship with the Soros-funded Neon. They're all symbiotic with Soros. They're all doing the same thing. Alice says, why does the British government pay £13 billion per year to Pakistan? Because they see foreign aid as an extension of domestic policy. No physical borders, no economic borders. So Mark Carney has signed us up to join Europe in everything but physical location. We're economically enjoined with Europe, although we don't do any trade with Europe, not anything close to the amount of trade we do with the United States. Why is that? Oh, good question. The ocean. That's why. The ocean. We can get to the United States in a truck, and trade with everywhere else requires the ocean. I know Alberta wants to get their product to market, but BC says no. So same. We're kind of screwing ourselves over, and we pretend that this is good governance, and it sure as heck isn't. CTV News is reporting, let's do our grab bag of governance. I'm not going to be cutting off the stream today. I have to do one live show. I don't have time to process the show after, so I'm just going to leave it. It's a free show for everybody. But we'll have the kitchen table talk later on today, as I said. But I don't have time to process anything this morning, so we'll do our best. Anyway, we carry on. Grab bag of governance is CTV News is reporting nearly 2,500 trucks are recalled for potential loss of steering control, according to Transport Canada. So stay frosty out there, friends. Like, it's if it wasn't bad enough already, right? It's maybe 1 in 2,500 accidents isn't actually the driver's fault, but the loss of steering because the truck is faulty. Yikes, right? Keep your head on a swivel out there if you're driving. Steve says, City of Calgary and the new mayor are set to repeal the citywide townhouse rezoning. The NIMBYs still dominate housing policy in Canada. And yeah, it's interesting. I hope they are able to repeal this townhouse rezoning, upzoning thing. And it seems like a globalist plan, so they're going to get lots of pushback on it. People are going to say it's dangerous, and where are we going to build housing now? And you're against housing, and you want housing to cost more. There's going to be all sorts of attacks because he's doing this. Chrystia Freeland is working for her Ukrainian constituents in Ukraine, and she says, grateful for the opportunity to address the Triennial Congress of Ukrainian Canadians in Toronto. Ukrainian Canadians have been at the heart of the Canadian story for more than a century, and Canada must be at the heart of the story of rebuilding Ukraine. No. Anybody who's advocating for rebuilding Ukraine is taking our money out of our country to build another country, and we're not getting anything out of that as far as I can tell. Right? Other than good feelings. And even then, the good feelings are not really for us, right? So it seems strange for everybody not to be questioning, don't we have homeless? Don't we have deficits? Don't we have a spending problem? Why are we focusing on rebuilding Ukraine? Why are we focusing somebody who's got a $150,000, $200,000 a year salary to focus on a foreign country when she has constituents that might need her attention? The job of the Canadian government is not to rebuild Ukraine. This should be obvious, no? So it's very strange for Chrystia Freeland to be focused on Ukrainian Canadians and Canada rebuilding Ukraine. That's strange. If we have enough money to do that, we're paying too high taxes. That's it. And if we have money to send to foreign nations for wars, then taxes are too high. That's the only answer. The answer is not, we have all this money, so we should send it to this foreign country for their war. The answer is not, we want this foreign country to win the war, so we're going to send money, because that's interference. Like, we shouldn't be sending money. I don't think it would be okay if people said, we really support these liberals. China's going to send lots of money to support the liberals. That wouldn't be okay, right? Oh, we're going to rebuild Ukraine. Here's Canadian Tire. This is our Canadian Tire here in Ukraine. We can call it Ukrainian Canadian Tire. Like, ridiculous. It's ridiculous. We should focus on our own country and not be sending money to foreign countries to build them. If we have enough to send, then taxes are too damn high. Here's an update about Dave Eby. Apparently the NDP really, really like him. Western Standard is reporting Eby safe as 82% of NDP delegates vote against holding leadership review. So there you go. No problem. No problem for Dave Eby. It boggles the mind. Like, who needs land? Who needs land and property rights? Pshaw. Keep doing what you're doing, Dave Eby. Holy cow. That is absolutely not at all it's what I expect, I guess, because Canada's ridiculous and everything's rigged. But I expected people to be more upset. I guess nobody cares. Tony Wakeham, who is the new Conservative Premier of Newfoundland and Labrador, is saying November 13th to 19th is Transgender Awareness Week. Wah, wah, right? Like, this is conservative? Are you sure? We all have a role to play in building safer, more inclusive communities for all of us. Trans rights are human rights. Everyone deserves to live with respect, safety, and dignity. This whole idea that trans people don't have rights is a very, very strange argument. And the fact that he's parroting this line, very concerning. Very, very concerning indeed. Ben is responding to Aaron O'Toole. This was a fun takedown, which I enjoyed reading. Ben says Aaron O'Toole is having a conversation with Ben, and Ben is responding to Aaron O'Toole. And he says, you, Aaron O'Toole, spent your entire tenure as leader of the opposition listening to focus groups, playing it safe, and not saying a word when Canadians needed it the most. That's the definition of being hardened by an algorithm. And Aaron O'Toole says, I ran for leadership twice and a general election once. Track down the platforms and have a look for yourself. You're quite mistaken. And so Ben says, okay, buddy, like, we're going to go through it because it's Friday and I'm having fun. Ben says, okay, since it's Friday and I have time to do this, I've tracked down your 2021 election platform. I'll go through it line by line in good faith, but I'm going to tell you right now, I don't expect to see anything in there that wasn't heavily focus grouped. Also, here's why I say you're a product of an algorithm. If I ask ChatGPT to generate an ad for a corporate chain of gyms appealing to recently divorced Generation X middle-aged men who want to get back into the dating market, it would look a lot like the cover of the CPC's 2021 election platform. Is this a Maxim magazine cover, right? Like, it looks, or Men's Health-ish, right? Like, I don't know. Anyway, so he says, here's the link I'm using as proof that I'm going straight to the source. So CPC Assets, conservative website, and it's a WordPress website, and it's in the upload folder, okay? And so he's downloaded that. You can download it too to check. He says, first page is a woman in a hijab working on a laptop. Not off to an auspicious start, but your first bullet point talks about helping women, quote, who have suffered the most as a result of the pandemic. You're not breaking any algorithms by saying bad things happen, women suffered the most. Next page, the words secure accountability are plastered in block letters over a stock photo of Ottawa. Nothing says breaking an algorithm quite like a stock photo of Ottawa, but you know what words I don't see on this page? Theresa Tam. Next page, forget politics. This this would be cliche if it was a university brochure copy. If you've been to university in the last 25 years, you've seen a picture of two women of different ethnicities and platitudes about mental health. More importantly, though, if you really want to secure people's mental health, maybe you should be fighting tooth and nail to make sure they're not locked in their houses over a bad seasonal flu. It wasn't even a really bad flu season. Like COVID was not even as bad as the couple of years before it, I think. And so I think this takedown is meticulous and line by line and pretty funny. And so it's a little bit beyond the scope of the time that I have today, so I'm not going to continue going through it. But it's a funny read. And Aaron O'Toole has been resurfacing as if he wants to take a crack at leadership again for some reason. I'm not sure why he's so prominent lately, but he keeps popping up fighting people about, rewriting. He's rewriting the history of his tenure as the opposition leader, and he remembers it a lot more fondly than other people experienced it. So, Justice Center for Constitutional Freedom says, read John Carpe's latest column, well-intentioned racism to achieve a vague objective of equality is still racism. The only sure path to reconciliation, social harmony, and equal opportunity in Canada is the principle of equal rights for all, special privileges for none. Yeah, except that our legal system has been turned on its head, and it's all about special privileges for certain groups, and that's not so good, right? Like, that's not very good at all. The food professor says, cloned meat survey. Anybody who wants to do a cloned meat survey, this is 2,300 votes, and it says, if beef or pork produced through animal cloning were properly labeled and 20 to 30% cheaper, would you buy it? And 7% said yes. 9% said maybe, 70% said no, and 13% said not sure. And somebody was making the case, and I think it's a case that I would agree with, that the cloned meat is like eating a cancer tumor. The tumor just keeps growing. It just keeps growing. And so, like, if you took all of these cells that keep growing and you put them in a machine that I can't remember the name of right now. It starts with a C. I can't remember the name of it. Sorry. If you put it in that machine and then you call it a hamburger, is it really a hamburger? Or is it just like some weird cells? And is it going to what's it going to do to you inside your body? Right? Like, I don't know. Is McDonald's already doing this? I don't know. I genuinely don't know. So I don't know. Julia says there's no need to clone meat for human consumption. Oust the communists, reduce regulations, break the AG cartels, and voila, you'll have more affordable food, increased production, and rigorous competition to keep it that way. Yep. That's the solution right there. Easy, right? U.S. Citizenship and Immigration Services Director Joseph Edlow has revealed widespread immigration fraud among nearly half of all Somali immigrants in Minneapolis, involving forged documents, fake marriages, missing employers, and non-existent business profiling, profiting off taxpayer-funded incentives. Crazy town. Like, that's pretty wild. In Canada, we also have Somalis and Eritreans, and some of them are in power, and Ahmed Hassan was immigration minister for a while, right? So it's very interesting. I don't have time to play this video because I want to get to the last part of the show, and I just don't have time. So we've got to keep going. So apologies about that. But I think what's going on, the fraud that's going on in Michigan is reflective of the types of fraud that are happening in other places as well, including Canada, across Canada. So hope I'm wrong about that, but it seems like if it's happening in the States, there are ways to make it happen in Canada, and it's working a treat. So you might as well, like, if McDonald's works a treat in California, well, it might work well in New York, and it might work well in other places. So when they have a system that they feel like they can export, or, the one in New York is on the second floor, so it doesn't look exactly like the one in California, but they're close enough. They're selling hamburgers, right? Like, it's the same thing. So you see what I'm saying? It may not look exactly the same in Canada, may not be exactly the same execution, but the product is mainly there. And what's the product? Fake forged documents, fake marriages, so on and so forth. These things work. They're selling hamburgers. Get it? Okay. Disclosed TV. Let's talk about Mexico. I don't know, genuinely don't know if this is a color revolution or like a Soros-backed color revolution because they're sick of Scheinbaum and they don't want Scheinbaum working with Trump. They don't want Scheinbaum. I don't know. I genuinely don't know. Or is this the people of Mexico rising up against Scheinbaum because she's bad? I don't know. Is she bad? It seems like she's done well. When you compare what Scheinbaum's done to what Carney's done, Scheinbaum's done better for her people than Carney's done for Canadians. And so if anybody's upset, I would say that Canadians would be upset, but Canadians aren't storming the House of Commons, right? Like, we're just placidly going to work, right? Like, so Disclosed TV says the National Palace in Mexico is besieged by a massive crowd amid growing insecurity in the country under Scheinbaum. Growing insecurity, the economy's insecure. The mobs of people who were traveling through to breach the U.S. government's southern border brought a lot of economic support to the country. Like, what's happening here? Why is Mexico collapsing like this? Okay, so there's that, and then here's more what's going on in Mexico. Jack says, video shows there are no more barriers left to protect the National Palace, the headquarters of the government of Mexico. Now all of them have fallen. Only the security device remains. Attempting to defend the palace with tear gas, Scheinbaum and her pro-BRICS Morena party said that the people calling for protests were all foreign-funded bots. All foreign-funded. Look at these foreign-funded bots. So is it BRICS? Is that what it is? But again, she's working with Trump and their tariff rates are low. So again, apologies that I'm not read in on the politics of Mexico. I thought things were peachy keen down there. What was his name? Chris Sky and that other big guy with the big teeth. They seem to love Mexico. So I thought everything was great in Mexico. Table Salt says Gen Z is rising up in Mexico because they're the first generation to have access to enough information to know that their entire government works for the cartels. If you have a bunch of different cartels running Mexico, then the government can't lock down the country. If you remove the cartels, it's like when you remove the Hells Angels from Ontario. The police become the Hells Angels, and not in the stopping crime kind of way. Okay, so it's really unfortunate, really. And I'm more talking like the OPP, RCMP, that kind of stuff. Oh, here's another Scheinbaum thing. Anti-Scheinbaum crowd in Mexico City used metal barricades to ram the line of riot police that were holding shields. Much of the security was protecting the National Palace has been torn down. So these guys are there, and that's it. And the people are not happy with what's going on. DD Politics says massive protest at Mexico City's presidential palace today. Young demonstrators accused Claudia Scheinbaum's government of enabling cartel activity. They're tearing down barriers, storming the walls, and clashing with riot police. Has this been bubbling? Like, what did Mexico's stock market collapse? What happened to trigger this? I genuinely don't know. So apologies that I'm not read in, but man, something's certainly happening. But the incendiary situation, the thing that started this, I have no idea. Edward, let's move on a little bit. Edward says, new banner appeared on my iPhone yesterday. If you had to imagine what a digital control grid might look like, well, here it is. Here's how it might begin. It starts with, I will try, then someday morphs into charging is unavailable. Clean energy charging. In your region, iPhone will try to selectively charge when lower carbon emission electricity is available. Yikes, right? And then soon, no low carbon emission electricity is available, so Apple will not charge, right? So get your flip phones out, kids, because we're about to go into a digital prison, right? If we're not already there. We might already be there. Concerned Citizen says this is the USA stuff and we're almost done, which is great because I have to go. And Concerned Citizen says, I don't think the UK is a friend of this country, a friend of the president. Tom Homan is speaking after the United Kingdom stopped sharing intelligence with America. Keir Starmer has already managed to destroy one of the single greatest national relationships in history. Yeah, so we'll see how this whole thing plays out, but Canada is not acting like a friend to the United States either. And so I don't know how long people can pretend, right? So you can pretend, and I mean, like, I don't think Carney speaks for me, but the government does do things, and the government doing things like that ad, right? That ad has real consequences. Algoma Steel is having a rough go, right? Like, real consequences, real impacts. Trade is a real thing, and it seems like people are playing a game and thinking that they almost can't lose, right? Like black or red, it doesn't matter. The government's going to give me more money, so they don't care. Whereas Trump's playing to win, and he is winning, and at our expense. And we should really be riding those coattails, not coughing up wins and losing to the United States' success. We should be riding the success with them. Unfortunately, we're not, right? We used to. If the United States boomed, Canada boomed too. Not so much in recent decades. Clint says, this is astonishing. During a congressional hearing, Jeffrey Epstein was texting Congresswoman Plaskett, feeding her questions, which she proceeded to ask. I don't even have words. So that's pretty wild stuff. And here's the video of her actually texting with Epstein during their hearing. John says Democratic Congresswoman Stacey Plaskett was live texting with pedophile Jeffrey Epstein as she questioned former Trump lawyer Michael Cohen during a congressional hearing. She was getting real-time advice from Epstein on what questions to ask. Wild, right? So the power structures. How high up does Epstein go? He's got Congress people, right? Congresswoman in his pocket. Who else? Biden, probably, right? And maybe it's not just Epstein, maybe it's who he works for. So pretty wild stuff. Psychotherapist Jonathan Alpert says that 75% of the patients he sees have a deep hatred for Trump and are hyperfixated on him. They can't sleep. They feel traumatized by Mr. Trump. What a weak way to live. What a terrible, weak way to live, honestly. I have one patient who said she couldn't enjoy a vacation because anytime she saw Trump in the news or on her device, she felt triggered. So this is a profound pathology, and I would even go so far as to call it the defining pathology of our time. Insane. This is brainwashing, right? Like people with weak minds will be told, like, this should offend you. And then they get offended that other people aren't offended, right? Because they've been told and believe this line that this should offend you. And now, why aren't you being offended? Like, I'm offended. I can't believe this is allowed on television. Why aren't you offended? And like regular people just don't care. You shouldn't give television pundits that much of your brain. You shouldn't farm out your opinion to other people. You should come to your own opinion. And most people don't care that much about politics. They just don't. I care about it because I find it entertaining and hilarious most of the time. Like, I can't believe these idiots are doing this. And I find the public's reaction to politics equally hilarious and entertaining and concerning, right? I look at this and I think, wow, like, really? Really? This is what people are doing with their time? You know, like some woman who's on vacation, probably in some, some nice location where there are all sorts of distractions, her family, maybe her husband, all sorts of great things, maybe some nice wines, all this stuff. And she's upset. She's choosing to be upset because of these things that people told her should make her upset. And she's even more upset because other people aren't feeling her same feelings. This is a brainwashed society that's obedient, an obedient brainwashed society. And like, I don't know about blaming TDS. I think that kind of papers over the media's 24/7. You should hate Trump. Trump's a white supremacist. Trump's this, Trump's that. He's terrible. He's all sorts of other stuff. And like, it's not even worth debunking, because if you debunk one, there's 10 more fake lines that they come up with to say about Trump. And the people want to believe it. They're primed to believe it. He's a terrible guy. Oh my gosh. And blaming TDS avoids talking about this 24/7 programming by the media to have people hate Donald Trump. It's no wonder people do this kind of stuff. They've been told to. So it's very concerning. It's very, very concerning. People should think for themselves. And if they would think for themselves, they would realize that a lot of this, not that it doesn't matter, because it does matter, but a lot of this doesn't touch their everyday. Like, it's more impactful that you're not finishing that project you wanted to finish than what Donald Trump's doing. You know what I mean, Karen? Right? Like, it's one of those things that you're your own worst enemy because you're so focused on this other thing, and you think this other thing is preventing you from living your life, but you're the one preventing you from living your life. You're the one getting in your own way because you're focusing on this other thing, right? So I do an hour-long show a day. Whatever, man. That's my stuff. Okay, so that's enough out of me. Thanks for watching, everybody. Thanks for your support. We'll be around for Kitchen Table Talks, but as I said, I'm not sure I'll be able to send out an email, so it's at the usual link. So just use last week's email, and that'll work. And I think that's about it. So thanks for watching, everybody. Thanks for your support. Have a wonderful, wonderful day.